Okay folks, we'll look specifically at the required practical you're asked to look at, which is the one where you measure a temperature change. Okay, so think of the most basic possible equipment we could use to investigate temperature changes in chemical reactions. We could have a beaker, we could have a reactant, we can add a reactant to it, let's say a metal. For example, we could add powdered zinc to a solution of copper sulfate. Okay, we'd have to take the temperature at the start with a thermometer. And we'd probably stir and record the highest temperature that we get to. So there's a method for investigating temperature change in a reaction between zinc and copper sulfate. This is an exothermic reaction, so let's say it reached 27 degrees C. We record the temperature change as 7 degrees Celsius. Okay, so here's a method. Now think what you might change. So for example, I could change the mass of zinc that I'm adding by weighing out different amounts on a balance in grams. And if I did that, think of the question I'm testing. I'm saying, what effect does changing the mass of zinc have on the temperature change when zinc reacts with copper sulfate? So my independent variable would be the mass of the zinc. My dependent variable will be the temperature rise or fall. It could be either, in this case it would be a rise or temperature change. And then we've got to think, what do I need to control in order to make my data valid? So looking at this set of apparatus, I need to keep everything the same apart from the mass of zinc. Okay, so it's going to be zinc powder, so that's okay. The surface area of the zinc will stay the same. And the copper sulfate itself needs to be the same concentration every time, so that there's the same amount of copper sulfate to react with in each of my experiments. Okay, I'm probably going to make sure it starts at the same temperature every time as well. So remember, we call those variables that we keep the same control variables. I need to control the concentration of copper sulfate, because if I didn't, it would affect the temperature change. If I had really weak copper sulfate for one experiment, I wouldn't get such a big temperature change compared to if I had very concentrated copper sulfate solution. Now, I can see problems with my method here, because as the temperature changes, in this case gets hotter, some of that heat will be transferred to the surroundings. Okay, so a good improvement to this experiment would be to insulate my beaker, maybe by putting it in a little woolly jacket, or using a polystyrene cup, and I'll probably put a lid on here, maybe that's insulated as well, to try and reduce heat transfers to the surroundings. Okay, so what's the point? The point is to measure the temperature change in a chemical reaction. Okay, one thing is being changed by me. One thing is the thing that I'm measuring that hopefully is affected by the independent variable that I'm changing, and anything that could affect the reaction has to be kept the same or controlled.